Debate, interviews, and breaking news. The Elias Macco Show. News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
So if you were listening to this show last week, I spent a moment with a warning for everyone, and I said, hey, folks, you want to buy a smartphone, you want to buy an iPhone, you want to buy an iPad, you want to buy an Apple product, you better buy one sooner than later, because Tim Cook did an interview with the Wall Street Journal where he let it drop that the cost of memory chips, the cost of storage chips was just going up too high, and that Apple was going to, sooner than later, pass the cost on to consumers. We just found it out in the last hour. Apple has significantly increased the pricing on virtually all of their products. Their base laptop that was $800 in Canada is now $949 as of this morning. A 20% increase in pricing, seemingly across the board when it comes to their tablets and their smartphones and their laptops. So the prices of electronics is going up. And I know for a lot of parents who are thinking about buying, let's say, a laptop ahead of the next school season for your kids, maybe now's the time to buy it, because it seems like prices will be going up over the next little while. That news just coming out in the last hour. Let's switch gears here and talk about USMCA or CUSMA or the new NAFTA, whatever you call it. The clock is ticking. There's less than a week remaining before a key deadline in the negotiations between Canada, the United States, and Mexico. Business leaders, manufacturers, political leaders, they are anxiously watching to see if negotiators can reach an agreement. Here's Pete Hoekstra, the U.S. ambassador to Canada, on with Vashi Kapelos earlier this week.
We recognize the needs we have. Okay, we need critical minerals. We've indicated to Canada, we think you're very much a natural partner. You're close by. You have lots of these. But if you don't want to sign an agreement with us, we understand.
How bad is it if we can't start the negotiations and reach a deal here? Let's go to Ian Lee, Associate Professor at the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. Great mind in this country on economics and more. Ian, thanks for coming on the show today.
My pleasure, Elias. Thanks for inviting me.
So, clock is ticking, as I mentioned here off the top, but just how urgent is it? How do you see this looming quote-unquote deadline?
In one sense, I don't see it as, a crisis point, because they can go past the deadline and keep negotiating if they so choose. The overarching risk for Canada, I believe, is if Trump has one of his temper tantrums and says, that's it, I am invoking the cancellation clause that each of the three countries possess in the CUSMA agreement, whereby you give 6 months to abrogate the agreement. You just cancel it, kill it. And 6 months later, it ceases to exist. That's the worst risk of all. And I say that because they're this giant economy, 32 trillion, largest economy in the world by far, much larger than the Chinese economy. Mm-hmm. And we are joined at the hip for 8,800 kilometers. And people who think that we can just, scoot away and go it alone by dealing with Asia Pacific and Europe doesn't understand geography, doesn't understand the distances or the barriers. And so we are joined at the hip. We do need a trade agreement. But to your question very quickly, if we don't come to an agreement, then there is a provision in it that it just rolls over every once a year, and then we can revisit it. Uh-huh. So it's not the end of the world if we don't come to an agreement. What's the, quote, end of the world for us is if Trump actually invokes the cancellation clause. He has certainly mused out loud who said, well, we don't need you to need CUSMA, but I attribute that to his sort of ramblings. I think that the trade negotiators' views are the actual views, and that they do take it seriously, and I think they do want an agreement with us, but it will be with changes that meet their demands if we are to have one.
Can I ask you if if Trump were to say, okay, we're canceling the deal and give that 6 months notice, if that's invoked, is that like past a point of return? Like once that's done, could that still mean, okay, 5 months from now, we have a deal, crisis averted? Or once you start that, it's over?
No, I believe, and I'm not a trade lawyer, I'm not a constitutional lawyer, but I've certainly studied trade agreements for my entire 35 years in in teaching in the business school. And by the way, I publicly and went out to meetings in Eastern Ontario, to chambers of commerce and schools and business associations to discuss just about every trade agreement from 1988 until today. I supported every one, in other words, by the way. And with trade, the key thing to understand about a trade treaty, as they technically call it, is that it is a set of negotiations between two countries. And it's not that different between negotiations in a union environment that many of us are familiar with. If you are in a unionized company, any of your listeners, you know that your union negotiates with the employer to come to an agreement. And both of you have different. The union has one set of demands and the management has another set of demands because they're each representing their own interests. So the point that I'm making is there is nothing to prevent negotiations from occurring if you have no agreement whatsoever because you've abrogated it. I mean, collective agreements do come to an end, and then unions continue to negotiate without any agreement. And they say, hey, we haven't had an agreement for 6 months. Let's get going. So there's nothing to prevent you from continuing to negotiate. And my own personal sort of injection here or strategic analysis is there is so much strategic interest on both sides. It's not just Donald Trump. First off, he'll be gone in 2 years. And secondly, he's, I say, only the president. Yes, very most powerful person in the world. But remember, there are millions and millions and millions of businesses in the United States. And all of the business associations I've looked at, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and similar, they are all very strongly supportive of a trade agreement with Canada and Mexico. So the business class, if I can call it that, are strongly in favor of a trade agreement. Yes, there are congressmen and women in the U.S. House of Reps, Democrat and Republicans, who are opposed. But that does not mean we won't get a trade agreement. It just means that we're going to have to find out what are the hot buttons on both sides that will cause us to compromise and them to compromise to come to an agreement. But I do think we are going to come to an agreement because it's in our self-interest in Canada and it's in the self-interest of the United States of America.
What, in your estimation, what are the things that are U.S. bluster, like on so-called issues that they have with Canada? And what are the things that are actually legitimate? Whether from aluminum to dairy, all over the place. Yeah. What's real, what's not?
I really like that question. I really mean it because I think that that is the real issue. That's the strategic essence of this. Because there's bluster by Trump. Okay, let's leave him aside. Yes, he's the president, but the negotiators, he's not in the negotiating room. There is a document that has been tabled in the U.S. Congress and publicly since at least the 1990s. I've read it every year from the 1990s on. The U.S. Trade Rep, USTR. Anybody can Google this report. And it's published once a year, and it lists all the countries of the world alphabetically, and that the U.S. has relationships with, which is just about every country in the world. And then it's alphabetical. So you can go there, and there's Canada right next to China. And then it has a long list of about 10, 15 pages of what they call the trade irritants. Okay, now an irritant doesn't mean that you're going to stop doing business with that country. It just means that we're not happy. We, America, are not happy with supply management in the dairy industry and the protections they have. It's listed every year since the 1990s. We ban American telecom firms, telephone companies, phone companies from coming into Canada. They don't like that, and they've said so. And they've got a long list of these irritants of essentially protected or partially protected industries. And so those are on the table. But now I want to answer your question because I think it's really the core of the issue. I read American media as much as possible. I'm talking the New York Times. It is so prestigious, the Wall Street Journal, and a couple of publications in Washington, like the Washington Post. And the people in there that write these op-eds are former secretaries, meaning cabinet ministers. They're former what we call deputy ministers, what they call undersecretaries, former generals, 4-star generals. These are people that really know what they're talking about. And there is no question when you read these American publications, these prestigious American publications, day after day, as I do every day, the American elite, if I can call it that, the Washington elite or the Washington establishment, Republican and Democrat, are absolutely, I'll use an unacademic term, they are freaked out by China. Canada is not their fear. They are not worried or afraid of Canada, I assure you. And that's why they're not going to invade us. They have no interest in invading us. They are absolutely terrified of China. They see it as, and all the reports that are published and the op-eds, they keep saying, China is our existential threat. So, back to your question. Anything that touches on China from our side is potentially going to really raise the ire of the United States. I just have said over and over, I don't think it's even conceivable that we could be trading sensitive products, chips, or anything that even touches on military or national security, software, anything like that is just, we're not going to be, that they will absolutely put the hammer onto us and not allow us to trade with China. How can they stop us? Well, they can do all kinds of things. They can close down the border. They can, put astronomical tariffs on us in the name of national defense and national security. So I think that, to your question, I think that is very problematic. I do not believe resources are problematic because, it's not as if cucumbers or potash or canola, which is a grain, has any national security implications. But when we start to move over to cars, well, cars historically there's no national security in a car because it didn't have any intelligence in it. Well, that was the old days. Now we've got these incredibly smart cars. They communicate with the internet. They communicate with the manufacturer. And so it is possible, and some American congressmen and women are alleging that national security in the U.S. is going to be compromised if Chinese cars come in via Canada. So these kinds of issues.
Well, Ian, it's of course it comes at a time where Canada has opened the door to Chinese EVs. Now, they may say it's a small number, but it's a large number of the EV market. Ian, I have to leave it there. Come back anytime, okay?
Okay, my great pleasure. Thank you.
That's Ian Lee from the Sprott School of Business. When we return, we're going to speak to the team at Tennis Canada about their plans for a new stadium at Jarry Park, why it's needed and necessary next. Let's do traffic.
Unmistakably Canadian.
It's the music that raised you.
The artists raising the bar.
Hi, this is Brian Adams.
Hey, my name's Brett Emmons. I'm from the Glorious Sons.
Hi, I'm Nelly Furtado.
Made in Canada. The station that champions Canadian music.
Loud, proud, and all yours.
No passports required. Just press play.
Tap into Made in Canada now on iHeartRadio.ca
or the free iHeartRadio app.
Time is valuable. Thanks for spending your morning with us. The Elias Macko Show on News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
Tennis Canada has big plans for a new stadium or retractable roof, a part of major upgrade to facilities at Jarry Park. Proposed project plans to increase the stadium's capacity from just under 12,000 to about 15,000 seats, would add 4 practice fields and a center court. Let's head over now to Valerie Tétrault, Vice President of Communications and Professional Events with Tennis Canada. She's on the line. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Okay, so how do you characterize what you announced this week? I know you did a feasibility study over the last year. Is this like a fait accompli? What are the hurdles that lie ahead? How do you characterize what you announced this week?
Yeah, I would say that it's the first important step in what is going to be a very long process, obviously, as we work towards this modernization project at Jarry Park. I think for us, we've spoken publicly many times about the need to look at our infrastructure and to be able to compete with what we're seeing from the other tournaments of our level around the world because of the pressure that we're feeling from the WTA and the ATP, and because, of course, we want to protect this great event that we have every summer in Montreal since more than 45 years. And so we've spoken about the fact publicly that we were doing a feasibility study. It was important to us to be transparent and be able to talk about the conclusions of that feasibility study so that people are informed of the direction that we're leaning towards. And I think that's an important step in us being able also to open the dialogue with different stakeholders, different partners, to try and make this project, obviously, an important one, not just for tennis, but for all Montrealers and people in Quebec.
How are we falling behind? You mentioned the other tournaments around the world. If you look at our the competing tournaments in the U.S. and other places, how is Montreal falling behind?
Well, there's definitely one thing that is clear is that when you look at our stadium, it's aging. It was built in 1969. At the time, it was a baseball stadium where the Expos played for some years, and then it was renovated in 1996. But there is, one important part of the stadium that was untouched. And so that part is really starting to worry us. We know that it's going to need some attention in the coming years, and that prompted us to look at the best solution moving forward, not just for the next 5 years, but really for the next 30, 40 years. And then you look at the other stadiums around the world, and obviously the experience is somewhere else compared to what we're able to offer. You look as well at the number of courts that we have on our site. You mentioned the fact that as part of this project, we are looking to add 4 courts, which of course are needed for the tournament, but I think are needed also year-round in terms of offering more opportunities to play tennis. It's a sport that is growing, and our recent participation study is showing just that.
Who's going to pay? Who's going to pay for this? A legitimate question. Like, where's this money going to come from?
Well, that's going to be part of the following steps, and the key step, of course, to make this possible. One thing that's important to know is that the National Bank Open doesn't receive annual public funding like, for example, the F1 Grand Prix does from all 3 levels of government. So we've gotten to a place since many years where we are self-sufficient. This tournament is also our way to be able to develop the sport of tennis across the country. We're non-for-profit, but in order now to be able to maintain this unique model that we have, that's where we're going to need help coming from all 3 levels of government. And of course, Tennis Canada will be looking at all ways possible, keeping in mind that we're non-for-profit, to also contribute in the financing model of this project.
With Valerie Tétrault, VP of Communications, Professional Events with Tennis Canada, talking about plans to upgrade the facilities, a new stadium at Jarry Park. So, Valerie, listen, I want to tell you something. Like, I'm fully on board with this, and the reason is I look around the city, and all I see is facilities that are not up to the standards of the rest of North America and much of Europe, okay? And the question I have is, I look at the football stadium for the Alouettes, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't even have seats, Valerie. It's got benches, okay? It's substandard. The CF Montreal, they're very vocal about how Saputo no longer meets the standards of the rest of the league. I know the person that wants to bring the Expos back to this city, he doesn't feel like there's support on that front to building a proper facility for baseball in this city. It seems like every single sports outfit in the city deals with substandard facilities. Have you spoken to any of these other sports franchises in this city, sports institutions in this city, to put a sort of common foot forward to try and upgrade all of our facilities?
I've had some discussions with them, and you're right that it does seem like we're all facing the same challenges, and I think it shows probably the lack of investment throughout the years, because most of our infrastructures all date back to the same period of time. Of course, we're following also, the progress that is being made at the Olympic Stadium, knowing that, CF Montreal, for example, is hoping to be able to play there, especially with the change of to their season. But you're right in saying that I think we're at a point where we need to all come together and find some solutions, because we've seen what it's like in the past when we lose some big sports properties. We've experienced it with the Expos. If we go broader than Montreal, we've experienced it with the Nordic, and it feels like ever since we've lost those two teams, we've been trying to figure out ways to bring them back. And we know that once something goes, it's very hard to bring back, and it's going to cost way more money than what it's going to cost probably to invest in our infrastructure.
Are you saying there, because I'm short on time, are you saying if we do nothing, we'd risk losing our National Bank Open?
We do. Not in the very, very short term, but definitely if nothing happens in the next few years, that is the threat, and that's what we're addressing with this project.
You want a roof on this new stadium, and roofs cost a lot of money. They add a significant amount of cost. Why is it so important?
Well, you look at the other events, and many of the big tournaments around the world, they actually have now more than one roof. So I think having one roof is going to make a tremendous difference, and that's how also the stadium can host maybe other sports events because it will have now the guarantee to be able to hold the event rain or shine.
Valérie Tétrault is VP of Communications and Professional Events over at Tennis Canada. Merci beaucoup, and come back real soon, okay?
Thank you so much.
When we return on the Elias Macko Show, in transit for this Thursday, we're going to meet a man taking advantage of the car-sharing craze by offering 40 cars for rent by himself. That's next.
This newscast is brought to you by Mera. This week, our Atlantic salmon filet is only $8.99 per pound. That's a 39% discount. Mera, the best kept secret in town.
Canadian women are looking for more out of themselves, their businesses, their elected leaders, and the world around them.
And that's why we're thrilled to introduce the Honest Talk podcast.
I'm Jennifer Stewart.
And I'm Catherine Clark. And in this podcast, we interview Canada's most inspiring women.
Entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, politicians, and newsmakers, all at different stages of their journey.
So if you're looking to connect, then we hope you'll join us.
Listen to the Honest Talk podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
The Elias Macko Show, on demand.
On demand. Don't miss a thing.
Find your favorite clips at CJAD800.com and on the free iHeartRadio app.
All right, coming up next on In Transit, car sharing is a craze. Car rentals are a craze. A lot of people need a car. They don't necessarily want to pay for a lease and insurance and the like. When we return, we're going to meet one Montrealer taking advantage of this craze by offering 40 cars for rent. That's next.
When the news breaks, be the first to know with CJAD 800.
New data shows that for the first time in almost a year and a half, trips south of the border are increasing.
Get it first. Get it right with breaking news emails sent to your inbox. Sign up today at CJAD800.com.
Pride is like love. You feel it in your heart. iHeartRadio, Canada's #1 streaming app for radio and podcasts, including iHeart Pride Canada, your favorite hits, and must-have party bangers, plus personalized and curated playlists like Back in the Day Pride.
Come together, celebrate love.
Take Pride with you, anytime, anywhere. Just ask your smart speaker to play iHeart Pride Canada. Stream us on your phone or listen now at iHeartRadio.ca.
Stories impacting Montrealers. News impacting Montreal. The Elias Macko Show. News Talk Radio. CJAD 800.
Have you ever been bit by a tick? You ever find a tick on you? You ever find an engorged tick on you? What about your pets, right? I mean, up until this week, my tick experience has to do with my dog. May he rest in peace. My dog Otis had gone to New Hampshire for the weekend, got back on a Monday. The 3 days later on a Thursday, I'm just giving him belly rubs, and I found the hugest, most engorged giant tick of all time on him. I was like, oh my God, right? And you take him to the vet and you're all worried and that kind of stuff. He was fine, but still, it was no fun. I'm going to get into my second encounter with ticks in just a moment, but here's how we get there. We get there by talking about babies first. Now, I took off a few days. I was off Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And this past weekend, boy, did we go through a lot here in the Macko's household. It was Friday night, right? So, the weekend is just starting. And it's Friday night, and Olivia she looks at me and she's like, I'm having some contractions here right now. We've got our second boy is due July 16th. That's the due date. All right. So we're excited, of course, nervous at times, that kind of stuff. But baby number 2 is on the way. And let me tell you something, he's coming. So Olivia on Friday, she's like, I'm having a contraction and it's a strong one. And she was having a few of them. And she's like, this could be it. And I'm like, are you sure? Because we're still, July 16th. It was, we were still a month out last Friday, right? I said, are you sure? She's like, I don't know. It feels, So, we call there's a phone number for the hospital where Olivia's going to give birth. We call them. They're like, okay, well, you got to monitor, and it's got to be, timed intervals, and it's got to be successive, a lot in a row. So that Friday night, she was a little bit nervous, but eventually we fell asleep, and then we woke the next day, and the next day she's like, something's going on. I feel it, So she had this inkling that something was coming. So we spent a couple of days over the weekend saying, okay, preparing. I need to get my bag ready. Still haven't done that, but we spent the weekend kind of sort of like anxious, nervous about, okay, this baby may arrive sooner than later. Now, I think at the end of the day, we feel that it was just the body getting ready, because right now, all is quiet and calm, and things are back to the quote-unquote normal, but still, this baby is coming July 16th or earlier or later. You know how it is. You never know how these play out, but we've got this baby coming. So we have that for the weekend. We decide, on Monday and Tuesday, we're playing actually with our son in our garden on Monday. And we're hanging out and, we're playing in the grass and we're, playing with the hose and playing with our bubble machine. We're just having a good time. And we didn't go anywhere. On Monday, we spent it at home. We roll around to Tuesday morning, and this is, what's happening now with my son. We moved him out of his crib, and now he's in a floor bed, one of those Montessori beds. It's a floor bed basically. So he's in his bed now, and that's changed. And now he can get up whenever he wants. So he gets up in the middle of the night. He comes into our room. If he comes into our room before 5 a.m., Olivia will pick him back up, rock him, put him back to bed. And depending on the night, either it's 1 or 2 or 3 visits during the night when he just gets up from his bed and comes out of his room and wants to climb into bed with us. Anyways, after 5 a.m., we let him just stay in bed while we wake up. So on Tuesday morning, we're waking up, we're slumbering in bed, and we're just, yawning and just trying to start our day. And our son is wide awake, right? So he is, full of beans, and he's talking and he's reading books in bed and he's looking around. And then at one point, he does this thing. He says, "C'est quoi ça?" Like when he's very curious, and boy, is he ever curious now. He points to things like, "C'est quoi ça?" And it's Tuesday, and he points to my wife's arm. He points to Olivia's arm, and he says, "C'est quoi ça?" And now normally when he does that, when he's pointing to Olivia's arm, he's pointing to a birthmark, a beauty mark. And she looks at her arm to look at exactly what he's pointing to. And lo and behold, what does she find? She finds a tick. Yeah. So she's like, honey, I got a tick on me. And isn't it weird how life works? And she goes, you know what? I read a story online yesterday about removing ticks. So she goes into the bathroom. She does it herself. I tell you, I remember taking the tick off my dog with tweezers, and it was like surgery, for crying out loud. That's how seriously I took it. Anyways, I go get a jar. She pulls off the tick. One motion with the tweezers gets it clean out. It was still very small. We put it in a jar. I wrap up the jar. I put the jar in a Ziploc bag. But now we're freaking out, okay? Because she's pregnant, and the last thing a pregnant woman needs is Lyme disease, right? So we're all freaking out. She's freaking out, and we call 811. So we call 811 and say, what do we do? We got a tick bite, and it was from our backyard. We did not go into the country. We didn't go into the forest. We didn't go into the woods. We didn't go on a hike. We did none of that. We had just spent the day in our backyard. Boom. Tick on the shoulder, on the arm. So the 811 says, listen, you should go see a doctor. So they make an appointment for the doctor at 3 p.m. with our family doctor clinic. It was not with our family doctor, who was not there that day, but at our normal clinic. So we go there. You know, the long story short is that the doctor's like, listen, it was on you for less than 24 hours. If it's less than 24 hours, we're not concerned. So dispose of the tick and you should be okay. Now, she's been fine since, and, you know, that's what the doctor said. I'm going to go with the doctor. I'm not going to go down some rabbit hole online and go into Google searches and AI doctors telling me that things are far, far worse than they actually are. But that was that doctor told us, under 24 hours, a small tick, didn't get engorged, you're fine. Live your life. So we were breathing a sigh of relief, but I should point out that we're not alone in being freaked out by ticks. More and more indications that ticks are becoming a bigger problem across the country, and we are getting some information from a couple of CTV News reporting on this this week, that 2 species that carry Lyme disease, the black-legged and western black-legged tick, we're seeing massive increases of tick reports across the country, up 38% year over year. Now, it's up in a big way in Ontario. Now, I wonder if it's about reporting, but the doctor had told us on Tuesday that they actually got a note from Public Health of late because the numbers have exploded in Quebec. But if I look at the Quebec numbers, went from 674 last year, and already this year, we're not done the year, by the way, already this year in Quebec, we're up to 938. So my grade 11 math here says it's up 50% year over year, and we're not even done the year so far. So yeah, I think we're all getting maybe a little bit freaked out over ticks because they're seemingly becoming more and more prevalent. That was my last few days, worried about ticks, but we got through it. When we return on the Elias Macko Show, we're celebrating the 150th anniversary of Mount Royal Park this year, and one group is trying to keep the legacy alive of the architect behind Mount Royal Park. We'll get that story next.
Pride is like love. You feel it in your heart. iHeartRadio, Canada's #1 streaming app for radio and podcasts, including iHeart Pride Canada, your favorite hits and must-have party bangers, plus personalized and curated playlists like Back in the Day Pride.
Come together, celebrate love.
Take Pride with you anytime, anywhere. Just ask your smart speaker to play iHeart Pride Canada. Stream us on your phone or listen now at iHeartRadio.ca.
You're listening to the voice of Montreal.
News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
An iHeart radio station.
iHeartRadio is throwing it back
2010s, the decade.
to the days of huge hits and unforgettable anthems. A non-stop stream of the biggest and best.
Drake, Rihanna, Beyonce, Katy, Gaga, The Weeknd,
And more. All your decade-defining favorites all in one place.
Hi, it's Katy Perry.
Hey, it's Bruno Mars.
This is Kesha.
Find 2010's The Decade on the free iHeartRadio app. Preset the station so it's always one tap away.